Hi, this is Gavin McDonough. A couple weeks ago, I had the pleasure and the privilege of taking a trip to Annapolis, Maryland to go to the Naval Academy Leadership Conference, all thanks to the A Legacy Center here at Wake Forest. I had a remarkable experience, and it's definitely something that I'll remember for a long time. I think I took a lot out of it, both just in terms of personal growth, how to develop as a leader, both from the front line and as more of a follower. I think that it was really impactful being able to hear from some very high-ranking members of the military, both 2- and 3-star generals, prisoners of war from Vietnam, IED specialists from Afghanistan. The list goes on, but I think that the one thing that really stood out to me is, despite the fact that you have these, very impressive panelists, all of them were very grounded, very down to earth, had a great perspective on life, but also were just, incredibly respectable people. So, I think it says a lot about, how you can perform as a leader to, be a doer and to be somebody that people can rely on to do the right things, but also to be a grounded person that people can look up to and take inspiration from. So yeah, I had an incredible experience, went traded for the world, and was definitely worth missing a few days of classes. So I'm glad that I took that leap and decided to go.
Hi, my name is Camille Duto. I am a senior in business and enterprise management, and last month I had the opportunity to attend the Naval Academy Leadership Conference in Annapolis, Maryland. This year's theme was returning with honor from trial to triumph, and one of the biggest takeaways I've had from the conference was the importance of resiliency, grit, as well as people and unity and having a supportive system. Throughout the conference during the week, we had the chance to hear from a variety of speakers, from prisoners of war, from the Vietnam War, from other midshipmen from the Naval Academy, commandants, former brigadiers, other professors, and business professionals. And there's particularly one speaker that comes to mind. His name is Lieutenant Brad Snyder. And after going to Afghanistan and walking on an explosive device which exploded, he became blind. And one of the first things he said to us, that was one of his first reactions, was that blindness would not stop me nor prevent me from doing what I wanted to do. And that really was a very powerful statement, because he decided to not have such a traumatic experience determine and define who he was, and then decide to fight for what he wanted to achieve. And he proceeded to win the Paralympics 400-meter swim, as well as breaking a world record and earning a few more medals, which was very impressive, and really highlighted this idea of resiliency and grit and fighting for what you want to achieve despite the difficulties. And he also said something else along the lines of, individuals rarely accomplish anything on their own. It's the communities that work together toward a common goal that do. And I thought it was a really important statement, especially in relation with what we learned at the business school, because they really highlight the importance of working with people and teamwork and being together and having people around you, and that you really never accomplish anything on your own. So I thought it was a very interesting statement. We also had the huge honor to hear from prisoners of war, specifically from the very, very first prisoners of war of the Vietnam War, which was a very emotional and powerful lecture. It was called a forestal lecture, which is basically when all of the midshipmen of the Naval Academy, as well as all the conference delegates, go to this big amphitheater room and they all attend this lecture. And one of the prisoners actually is the one who created the prisoner tap code, which is basically a code to be able to communicate without speaking to the other prisoners. And through that, they were able to know each other as well as best friends would know each other, without ever meeting or seeing or talking to each other, really just by doing a tap on the floor or on the wall. And they met each other for the first time 8 years later, when they were liberated and sent back to the United States. And this was a very, very, very emotional and very powerful lecture and discussion between those 3 prisoners of war. And I think that it really highlighted again the importance of people and having a group and a team. And throughout the conference, during the 4 days we were there, we also had 2 midshipmen that were assigned to our little group, and we would go together to breakout sessions and debrief and talk about what we'd learned during those lectures and panels. And this was really a good way to meet people from all around the world, from all around the United States, from completely different backgrounds. We had people that were business professionals, students, former soldiers and everything, and we were able to talk and share our different perspectives and points of view on what we were talking about during the other panels and discussions. And that was, again, very, very insightful. I feel very lucky to have been able to meet so many great people at this conference. And another thing that also I remember we talked about, one of the professors who work at the Naval Academy talked about reframing failures, and instead of calling them failures, calling them opportunities to grow and to learn. And so we did this whole exercise where like 300, 400 people were in this big amphitheater, and we had note cards, and we had to write failures and reframe them into something more positive and see how we can learn from those failures. And again, I think that's really aligning in relation with what we learn here at the WFU School of Business about not failing but learning every time. And I think it's really what we're taught here too. So I thought it was a very, very interesting connection between a world that's so different as the Naval Academy versus the WFU School of Business. So I feel very fortunate to have been able to attend this conference. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Stephen Yeppa. I am a senior in the business school. I major in business and enterprise management, and I minor in sociology. A few weeks ago, I had the pleasure and honor of attending the United States Air Force Academy Leadership Conference. Although I attended virtually, it did not impact the enjoyment of my sessions and the experience and at all. Coming into it, I knew that we were going to hear from some great speakers, but I had no clue about maybe the correlations in leadership between business and in the military, and I was quickly taken aback by just the similarities and the overall great lessons and nuggets of knowledge that you could take away from leaders across different sectors and different walks of life, honestly, and the speaker's courage and ability to serve our country so well and so effectively was a pleasure to be a part of. On the first day, one of the colonels mentioned that before he has a notebook, and he wrote down some key things that he always tries to remember to ensure that every day is a meaningful day. And even though some of the items that he wrote down were, know your why, be humble, some of those are great things to keep consistently. It made me realize that, hey, maybe I should adapt that to make sure that I'm the best leader, the best disciple, the best student every day, just to make sure that I'm giving it my all to my peers or my followers or my leaders themselves. Secondly, we had an astronaut from NASA come who was a former Falcon, and the biggest thing I took away from him was the fact that trust in your teammates is utterly important. He's millions of miles away in space, and the crux of his message was, if you don't trust your teammates, you can't go up to space. And I feel like that message would resonate with, if you're working on a project or working on a team. If you can't trust your teammates, there's going to be you're not going to be as effective as you could be. And that's something that I've been trying to work on as a future leader myself, is being able to trust the teammates around me to take a little bit of work off my plate, or to help them out, and to know that if I, so to speak, kick the ball out to them, they're going to hit the shot, so to speak. And then lastly, one of the speakers, Dr. Small, gave a great presentation on building a durable mindset. He mentioned that we all kind of look for ways to get around stress, and sometimes feel a little bit of imposter syndrome. And he said that stress is something that you shouldn't shy away from, It helps forge better people, better experiences, better times. But being able to counterbalance that stress um, with a period of reflection. You know, if you're going 100 miles an hour, you got to find some time to go, 10 to 15 and really reflect on, those stressful periods to make sure that they are meaningful to build for the future. And he also said, you have to know yourself a little bit better and take time to know yourself a little bit better before you can really give everybody, your teammates, your all. So those were some of the three best out of a litany of great presentations and experiences that nuggets of information that I was able to get, and those really resonated with me. And I hope to carry some of those practices and mentalities going forward as I leave Wake Forest and enter and venture out to the real world, I guess. So, thank you to Wake Forest for allowing me to represent them in such a great experience. And I hope that more Demon Deacons can go in the future because I think it was a tremendous and great experience.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Aguilar. I am a senior here at Wake Forest. I'm a BEM major with a concentration in marketing, and I'm also an English minor. I had the wonderful opportunity to go to the McDonald Leadership Conference of Character, the MCLIC at West Point, this past weekend. It was so much fun. I really had a blast. I really got to connect with so many different people. There were people just there, cadets at West Point, also just international students, people who didn't get the chance to go during COVID and were able to come back. And then we had a wonderful plethora of panelists and also a few keynote speakers. So the first day we got to listen to different panelists. The first panel was more about just peer-to-peer leadership, and so really in that panel I got to learn more about how to create just relationships with just my own peers. Just because you're a leader doesn't necessarily mean it's in a hierarchical structure. So it's really important to consider how to be a really good peer, but also really balance that out with leadership. Another thing that we really learned about was more just leaders of character. Not only is leadership important, but just carrying that charactership throughout your whole entire life. So when you step off the pedestal of leadership, you also have to bring that at home. You got to have that with your family and your friends. Just staying connected with them is so important. Another thing is just the idea of followership. So one thing that was really important that I didn't really think about was how to be a leader, but also how to be a really good follower, because without being a really good follower, you're not a great team player. And if you don't have that, the overall team doesn't succeed. So that was a really interesting perspective to see as well. And then afterwards, once we had the panels, we went out to breakout groups, and then we got to just listen to different perspectives on like what we thought about the panelists, how we see our own difficulties throughout our own lives, so just at school, at work, and different real life examples. And interestingly, I really got to hear from the West Point side, but also through just academic life as well, and also real world life. So one of the people in our groups was from South Africa, and he got to bring a perspective through like internationally, and I got to see the global perspective of things as well. We had 2 cadets on our team as well, and we got to hear the West Point side and how everything is structured and there's a hierarchy, but also we got to blend that in with peer-to-peer leadership and figuring out how to balance that peer-to-peer leadership with the hierarchical structure. So those are just a few things I learned. I learned so much more. I got to meet so many great people, and I was really grateful to be there. I had a wonderful time, and I just really wanted to thank Wake Forest in giving me this opportunity to attend the MCLIC.
I'm Alex Dickey. I'm a senior here in the School of Business with a major in Business and Enterprise Management and a concentration in International Business. And I was really fortunate to have the opportunity to travel to Colorado Springs to the U.S. Air Force Academy to attend the National Character and Leadership Conference and represent Wake Forest in doing that. It was a really great experience and an awesome opportunity to really immerse myself in an environment where leadership and character are really at the core of the cadets' education there and really their everyday life. it was really awesome to get to hear the experiences through keynote speakers and speaker panels of business leaders, military leaders, and other just really impressive individuals who really embody grit and leadership in their lives and their achievements. Of those, we had the CEO of Boeing come to speak, a very accomplished ultramarathon runner, an Olympic bicyclist, and even the kind of the head military defense leader in charge of the region of Ukraine when Russia invaded. So it was really cool to kind of hear from her perspective about that. And really, a lot of the common themes that I got while I was there were really about perseverance and grit, humility, a lot about integrity, and they really kind of reinforced and echoed those lessons that I've learned here at the business school through my education, through classes like business ethics and leadership or the Callaway leadership experience. And it was kind of great to see how what I heard there really aligned with the education I was getting here and some of the lessons I'd already learned. One of the big takeaways that I had was that really great leadership, it's not concerned as much about how you interact with and manage others, but it really fundamentally begins from within the self and how you're able to frame your own thoughts. One of the speakers that really pushed this was actually the opening speaker, who was a leader at the Academy, and his lesson, kind of the way that he perceives leadership, is that it all starts with his thoughts, with your thoughts, because your thoughts, they ultimately become your actions. Those ultimately become your behaviors, which become your habits, and keep going another couple levels. And where it starts out with your thoughts, it really begins to become who you are as a whole, and including how you lead others. And so it was, it's really important for me to think about that, because if you can't really make those connections between how you think and how that affects your habits and your behaviors as a whole, then there can really become a disconnect between how you perceive yourself and others perceive you, which could be very detrimental to your leadership or your credibility when in that kind of position. Another one of the really inspiring speakers at the ceremony, in my opinion, was Jason Redman, who was a soldier who was severely wounded while serving in the Middle East. And his story was kind of all about, when he woke up in the hospital in the U.S., with a lot of people saying, you're really lucky you're alive, and it really gave him a whole new perspective on life and how he viewed leadership. And it kind of aligned with what I was just talking about, how it all starts with your thoughts. What he really began to what really began to happen was he became really, really frustrated with all the people coming into his hospital room saying, oh, I feel really bad for you, like, I'm really sorry this happened, because in his mind, he didn't feel that way. He kind of acknowledged that how he digested that whole experience and how his mindset from there was going to be, it was really in his control. It started with how he was able to frame his own thoughts. And so he actually put a note on his hospital door saying that, if you're just coming in here to say you feel bad for me, like, don't come in. And so all that kind of going back to, to be a leader, you have to really begin to train yourself to think like one and, do the right thing when nobody's looking or when nobody's going to know that you are. And so, yeah, it was just a really great opportunity. I'd recommend it to anyone else, and really thankful for the School of Business and the leadership department here for making the trip possible. It was really valuable.